Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jonathan Simonelli. I am the manager here of our service and support division at Real Estate Nexus and Rent 360. And I am joined by two of our clients who are going to be reviewing with you today some of the best practices in their experience delivering a powerful listing consultation. This can be the make or break when it comes to not only getting the listing, but even being considered in the future. This is going to be your initial first impression in most cases. And what we're going to be doing today is a deep dive into the best practices and the tips and tricks we use, as well as our guests are going to be talking about what they use today as well, to make sure that you know exactly what tools, what materials, and what tips and tricks you can be implementing along the way into your own business. Before we jump into the topic, I do want to give our guests a quick moment to introduce themselves. Suzanne, would you like to start out by just letting us know who you are, where you're from, and then any way that we can find you online? So if anybody wants to learn more or send a referral your way, they could do so.
Awesome. Well, I'm Suzanne Rocha. I am the owner and broker of Cal Home Real Estate Services here in the San Francisco Bay Area. I've been in the real estate industry for about 20 years. And prior to that, I've been in marketing and owning some marketing consulting firms. So I love real estate, have a passion for really helping people, no matter what the size or value of their property is. And I also have been featured on Bay Area television. I've been on Bay Area television for about 18 years now, consistently. And so a lot of people know me from there. And so I just, help people. I deliver a very beneficial, presentation. And so my passion is really getting somebody from point A to point B in delivering peace of mind. You can find me we have a website. It's calhomeinfo.com. Where you'll see my contact information there, and also on Instagram at Suzanne Rocha 18 or Instagram at calhomeinfo. Thanks.
Very cool. Thank you, Suzanne. And for anyone who is thinking about giving her a follow or anything along those lines, if you want to see what will get you on television and get you featured in your area for 18 years, I can promise you she will be sending, or you'll be able to follow and pick up some of her tips and tricks right from there as well. And then we're also joined, representing our East Coast today, Jennifer Young. Jennifer, why don't you let us know a little about yourself?
Well, thank you so much. I'm Jennifer Young. I am here in Wilmington, North Carolina. And we are a beach community. Some people are getting very, very knowledgeable about our area since our lovely COVID adventures outside of our homes. So our little city has grown quite quickly. My background in real estate, I started in Houston, Texas back in the early 90s with my mom, thanks to her, still in real estate as well, and moved to New York City, sold homes in Manhattan and the Brooklyn area. And then I moved to Wilmington, North Carolina in 2009 and got my license here and still practicing. So I myself, as well as Suzanne, have a passion for real estate. I've been doing this business for quite some time now. People don't believe me, but I have. And the best part is I do have, in earlier years, I was customer service, and then I moved into sales and B2B. And so in between my real estate, part-time when I was really younger, I did a lot of sales. I had I was very focused in a sales business at all times. So my background, along with the customer service aspect, also with that sales, and then I have a passion for marketing, and that's where my listing, I promote my listings because I do really enjoy the marketing side of the business as well as the customers. So, and if you would like to learn a little bit more, Nest Realty is a boutique firm. We are up and down all over the East Coast now, and moving over towards the Midwest. And if you want to learn more about myself and my team, it's freshnesthomes.com. You can learn more about Nest Realty online as well. And if you want to find me on Instagram, it's Freshnest Homes. It's Freshnest_homes. And you can learn a little bit more about my business and see a little bit more about what we do here. And also Facebook as well, LinkedIn, Jennifer Young. It's, Jennifer Young at LinkedIn, Freshness Homes on Facebook, and Freshness Homes on Instagram. So I hope to see you guys and make some new friends.
Perfect. And if anyone is looking to reference any of these links in the future, they will be in the description of the video, of course, as well as additional contact information for both Susanna and Jennifer. It goes without saying, but I always like to, is if you have a referral in that area, or if you're looking to learn more about the area, or even move to the area yourself, we cannot speak highly enough of either of these two agents. Their experience alone should speak for itself, but we can say, as clients of ours over here, we cannot we really would never refer anyone else. They are the best of the best, and we would strongly suggest working with them if you ever have the opportunity. So with that said, we are going to be looking at our topics for today, which is delivering a powerful listing consultation. And with that, it's going to come down to a few key factors. Something we like to do here on the Run 360 podcast is give you some bullet points, followed by a discussion around them. Something we've already talked about briefly, and something that was referenced just in introductions alone, is something that Suzanne and Jennifer do, is they always want to make sure they're helping their customer in a variety of different ways, from getting the most value for the home, to making sure it's marketed the right way, to even just getting the exposure online to make sure that the right potential buyers or the right sellers are getting identified. So the first bullet point we're going to be talking about today is a little more of the abstract versus the concrete, which means it's not something that you can put in your pocket or the trunk of your car, but it's something that needs to be on the top of our mind going into each of these different presentations, going into what we finally refer to over here as a discovery meeting, which is more commonly known as a listing appointment. And it's going to be talking about the difference between a conversation versus a presentation. And just on a high level, I think regardless of background, we've all sat through presentations before, and they're not exactly something we look forward to. Conversations, on the other hand, have a wide variety of different uses and generally have a very positive context to go with them. So, Suzanne, I was hoping to leverage some of your experience here, or even a story about how using a conversational approach versus a presentation, or just any tips and tricks you have of making sure that you have that top of mind going into your listing appointments, or as we call the discovery meetings here.
Oh, absolutely. And nobody wants to, sit there and be talked to. It is a conversation. Listening is extremely important. That's kind of what I bring to the table. And you can't really assume everybody knows everything about real estate. And so I like to be able to go in with a very conversational approach, yet a guided conversation, because you don't want to have, get off on tangents and talking about things that could create more anxiety for somebody during a presentation and such. So it is really, really key to talk, to ask the good questions, to uncover any objectives. And how you do that is by a guided listening conversational piece.
Absolutely. And I think questions are one of the most beneficial tools to be able to do that, because again, if you're speaking to someone and you're not asking for anything in return, either haptic feedback from their body language, so on and so forth, or even verbal feedback of what do you think? Is this making sense? So on and so forth. It can turn into a presentation very, very quickly.
Oh, absolutely.
Jennifer, I would love to know, do you have any go-to questions, or how do you approach one of these appointments to try to make it more of a conversation versus a presentation when you're having an initial conversation with one of these opportunities?
Yes, very similar situation. I don't like to go in and do although I was in sales for many years, I've learned that you build a relationship and you build rapport first. That is the most important. And people work with people that they like and trust. So you have to come in knowing they may have never met you. Maybe they saw your face someplace or it was referred, but they still don't know you. Going in also, you don't know them as well, their personality, and you learn. So like the listening aspect is extremely important, and not going in to sell them or talk to them the whole time. You have to ask the questions. As they say, peel the onion. You really have to get in there and figure out what is their motivation. Why are they actually even calling me? Sometimes I'll ask, how did you get information? What is it about me that made you call me? So then I know to make sure to deliver that part of my business that maybe, sparked the interest of them reaching out to me to begin with. So I think, again, the presentation, the listing, all of that comes after. I think the initial is just getting to know someone and building that trust and rapport with someone in that first couple of minutes is key. And then from there, you'll know if you can move into that listing sales side, or do you need to slow down, or are they, let's get this over with? So you learn a lot in the first 5 minutes of sitting down with somebody.
Absolutely. And I think what Jennifer, you were describing there actually pairs very, very nicely with what Suzanne said as well, because if you're, as Suzanne said, taking the lead in the conversation and you're making sure it goes where you want to go, you need to be in tune and have the answers to the questions, as you were describing, Jennifer, to make sure that you are driving the conversation in the right area. Because if you are driving it in a direction more of the sales presentation and they're not quite ready yet, the way we refer to it over here is you're essentially proposing on the first date. And that can have very mixed reviews along the way if you don't take the time to build the rapport and actually get to know the person in even just 5 minutes or less. You can really get an idea of exactly where they're at throughout the sales funnel, throughout your sales process, and then be able to tailor the conversation to be of the best use to them. Mm-hmm. So very good information there, already starting out here. And then this is something that piggybacks right on it, which would be creating a win-win scenario. This is something that I believe can be overlooked by a lot of, specifically on our side as in the agent side of things, because at the end of the day, we know why we're there. We are there to help the person, of course. We want to be that kind of consultant, but we're also there because we need to make money at some point during our life. And we're going to be there to make sure that we can help get the home sold, that we were able to collect the commission check, because at the end of the day, as real estate agents, we work for free until that house closes. So we know why we're there. And what I think is overlooked is sometimes showing the benefit or the value in of ourselves as agents to that homeowner and showing them this is not just something for me, because obviously they know why you're there as well, but making it about them and showing them the value and showing them the quote unquote win that they are going to have. There's a ton of tips and tricks around doing this. But Suzanne, I'd love to hear from your perspective. What do you do to help show them the win or the value on what you're bringing to them when you're getting things started here?
Well, I think what's important is, again, going back to the listening, value and benefit has to be built in and interwoven into a conversation with them. And so getting them to speak, getting them to answer questions, guiding them, building rapport, just like Jennifer said, is really important. But also, I like to present to them that working together is really going to be of value, and that I don't work with everybody. I put that out there so that, along the way, having them say yes, and, yeses are really important. So when you come down again to looking down the road to the final, it's an assumption that, we're going to work together. But getting back to the question, I like to, tell them that we have to mesh together. I take on their goals as if they were mine. I have the expertise they need in order, working together to meet their goals as a team. But it's really important that they know that this is something special. I'm not a run-of-the-mill real estate broker, and working together is going to be a win-win. But we have to be able to, be on the same page. And so again, it's building value, having them be excited that, I do say, I think we would work well together. So not just assuming it right off, because, we want to make this as a special situation and something that they're going to really find value in and want.
Absolutely. In a lot of ways, this is a job interview, because that's what you're essentially doing. You're applying to be their agent. We can assume that they would work with us. We know we're the best agent in the area. We know we're going to get them the best possible results. But if they don't know that, if they don't believe that, then at the end of the day, they're the decision maker, end all be all. And we have to make sure that they see the value along the way. And Jennifer, anything you would like to add to that? Any things or any tips and tricks you've used in the past to help build value or paint the picture of the win that they have waiting for them if they choose to work with you, or if it makes sense for you two to even work together in the first place?
Going on the interview side, going back to that, it's definitely the interviewing. Yes, we're interviewing, but at the same time, I'm interviewing. So I do kind of, it depends on the conversation, obviously, and when it will fit through, or when it fits in, but it's, hey, I understand, I'm interviewing for the position of selling your home. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this opportunity. And at the same time, keep in mind, this is a team. This is, we're playing as a team. I would be a realtor. You're the seller. We need to work together. We need to also make sure that we like each other and that, we want to work together with one another and that we know it's going to be the best fit. And so at the same, I just kind of preface that sometimes depending on, again, the client and what's going on with everything as well, because a lot of times you're just not the right fit. Either it's a personality conflict. A lot of times it's that, if it's anything. So then I also let them know, hey, you know what? And if we're not a good fit, don't worry. I have many people I know that I can put and that would fill this position amazingly for you and would be a great fit. So, let's continue on what we are, what's going on, but, and then move on from there. And that's really only if I kind of, if you're kind of feeling like this is probably not going in the best direction for some
Yes.
whatever reason, you can catch yourself and go back and be like, at the
Yes.
same time, we're all in this together. So, but yeah. And I think delivering the experience is the value add to that is, your clients, you can't, like Suzanne said earlier, you can't assume that the caller or your client or your appointment person knows anything about you. You don't even know if they just could have literally looked you up on Google, which happens 90% of the time, right? So they don't know your experience. They may not know any of your background, what you've sold. Maybe you sold Susie's house next door and they had no idea that was you. So I think it's very important that you add the value with the experience that comes with hiring me as your realtor. So I think that's number one. A lot of people kind of skip over that.
A lot of really good points there, and a couple things I want to touch back on, and not to fall too far down the rabbit hole here, but there was just so much good information there. I want to reiterate some of it. Part of it would be, I love how you described that you're actually interviewing them as well there, Jennifer. And I think even though, yes, it's going to be rare that we would probably, a lot of people listening on this today, the thought of turning down a listing at any point in time just seems absolutely absurd. And I don't think the expectation should ever be that we go in thinking that we would, but having it in the back of your mind that you can, and that you need to treat this as you're interviewing them as much as they are interviewing you, will put you into a better mindset to make sure that you are asking the questions. And going back to what we talked about originally, make sure you're going in with the right mindset to get to the point of knowing, is this a good fit? Is this a good person that I should be working with? Because down the road, if we're looking to grow and scale our business, we know 70 to 80% of our business repeat referral, if not more of our business, comes from people that we've worked with before. And if we don't work with people that we like to work with, or if we're not working with someone that we can provide a 10 out of 10 great experience to, then we're going to end up maybe not generating more business from them in the future, or generating more business that we never say we don't want, but there's not an enjoyable experience for us to do. So I think having that mindset going in is very important. And then I would also be very curious if either of you had an experience before where you were thinking you would turn down the listing appointment. Something was just off, something was not a good fit. And then when you actually had that conversation, you ended up taking it based on maybe a concession by the seller, a concession on the buyer, saying, you know what, you're right, you're the expert. Maybe I should think about what you're saying along the way there. Have you actually ever turned down a listing appointment you went back to, or have you ever just turned down a listing appointment and said, you know what, based on this, I don't think I'm the best fit for you? Because I think an example of those would really help our audience understand why you would ever turn down a paycheck based on whatever situation it may be.
I can say I have. I've actually withdrawn a listing before.
Really?
I did take the listing. Everything was full blow. We're ready to do this. Let's go, rah, rah, rah. And then when I had delivered, the staging, we had got everything set up. I told them what they needed to do. And it kind of was like this very slow moving activity after they promised me the moon. And then I got in there and we listed it because we did get everything except for, and I'll give you the example. The house was completely covered with wallpaper. Like every
Wow.
stitch of wall was wallpaper or color paint. So I just said, paint the entire house a neutral color. It'll cost you a little bit of money, but you will make all of that money plus some back, I promise. And they said, sure, we'll get it done. I gave them all the referrals. We're also the full Rolodex of every repair person in need on the planet. So we get going, and every showing, every feedback, every piece of information was, it's too much work. There's too much wallpaper. There's too much. It's just cosmetic, but it's too much. It did not show well, and it showed dated. And so then they started noticing other things that needed to get done. And it was months on the market. And this wasn't recent. This was an old one. But this thing should have gone quick, and it should have gone easy. And it was exhausting to me because, of course, they just wouldn't listen. So I just said, you know what, let's just withdraw it for a while and see what happens. And you guys do X, Y, Z, and we'll put it back on the market. They literally did put it back on the market with another company at the price I recommended after they painted it and took the wallpaper down, and it sold. And I was like, okay, you're welcome. I'm happy I did all of that for free. But you know what? The headache of carrying it for another 3 months would have probably put me on my grave.
And you would have been investing time, effort, and everything else into it, where
Gotcha.
it probably in those
And it would
3
have never would have
months,
sold.
right? And you probably got some other sides of business and put your time to a little bit better use in the 90 days you got back, not having to worry about that. But that's a fantastic story there, Jennifer. And Susanna, any similar experiences?
Yes. So, exactly, Jennifer. And sometimes what that situation is that you're the first, broker realtor, but you're not going to be the one that's going to close the deal. And so you can kind of tell that along the way that it's, and it's exhausting. I think I have turned down listings, or I haven't really followed up for people that I felt are not flexible at all. I got the intuition told me that I was probably going to be the training agent, and they were going to experiment at this super high, unreasonable price after wanting all things done. And I was, they weren't realistic, and I could feel that. And, again, it's all about a win-win. But if you have one side that won't budge, won't listen, won't take any type of, support, criticism, not, constructive.
That's a big one. Criticism, constructive criticism is huge. Like if
Yeah,
you feel them go, oh, you
Yeah.
don't like my purple bedroom with all the purple matching
exactly.
everything. Well, then, I mean, I don't know.
Exactly. And where they don't, they're the know-it-all because they've been on Zillow and Redfin and Realtor.com, and they know everything. They know the comps, and they know it's almost like, they want to be able to not listen. They want to be able to control everything. And again, it's not a team, and it's not about getting to the end goal. So I have turned down situations, and I have seen that particular property go on the market and come off the market. Those are kind of going to be the expired listings, that sort of thing. So that's where I felt, again, I saved myself, the time and energy to devote to somebody else.
Yeah, it hurts a little bit. It stings, but then
Yeah,
it's kind of like, you have to, whatever. Another one will come in its place.
Oh, exactly. And that's totally
and it always
how
does.
I feel. It's like there is somebody else, if you devote all and work on this negative atmosphere, you're really not allowing yourself to be available to somebody else.
Exactly. Something else to come in on top of that one that's way better, or
energy.
5 of them.
Gotcha. Totally.
I'm going to quote our VP from a training we actually did corporately this morning. And it was a simple question of, if somebody today walked up to you and said, I need you for 10 hours, what's your billable hours? If I needed you for 10 hours right now, how much would it cost me? And everybody went around the room saying how much it would cost. And it's one of those things where when someone, in this example you gave us there, Suzanne, and it's going to take hours upon hours upon hours of yourself, you got to factor in, okay, how many hours am I putting in? Yes. What am I valuing my time at? And is this commission check on the other end? Yes, it's always going to be worth it to a degree, but is it the best use of my time? Is this going to pay me what I'm worth? And is it just worth the investment overall? That's a conversation we need to have with ourselves, and especially with, and probably not directly with the homeowner, but letting them know, hey, I'm not the person that's going to give you the best experience because of, and you can explain to them along the way there.
Exactly. And then you run the risk, to be quite honest, where if you have somebody that's not flexible, they know it all, they know more than you, and then it doesn't come out well. It doesn't. So then you risk a bad review, social media. There's other things that could affect, your business moving forward. And so you've got to take all of that into consideration and look at the big picture, and to see if this is going to not only be worth it, but what is going to happen after it.
Absolutely. And I'll leave this segment with one last story, and it's going to be a hook to go back and listen to our last podcast, because one of our guests was sharing a story of, we personally here at Ren 360 cut our teeth on for sale by owners and expired. So that was our bread and butter for a long time, especially with our local brokerage. It was low hanging fruit. And granted, this was about 6 to 7 years ago, where it was a little bit of a different market than we're in now. One of the stories he shared was he actually went to a for sale by owner appointment. House was worth a fair amount, not a cream of the crop, but still worth an appointment over there. And the guy was completely non-flexible on the price. And he actually was planning to turn down, and he explained to the homeowner, I'm turning this down because the price you want to get, I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's not one that I'm going to sign on the dotted line saying I can get you. Therefore, I'm going to, and just having that conversation and explaining that he's going to walk away, the homeowner is like, you are the first person who has, and he's gotten 25 to 100 phone calls a day or so he claims from his agents. And he said, you were the first person to say that you would not take my business no matter what price I wanted to list it at. And that one listing, I think it came in just shy of $200,000, actually turned into 6 listings down the road, because he actually had a whole commercial division of his business that he was looking to list. And that one conversation completely changed his trajectory for the entire year. If you want that full story, the very last podcast, it was an amazing story. And he went through his whole details on how he got there and what went into actually getting that appointment in the first place. If you haven't listened to it, I'd strongly suggest going back. But to bring things back to today, the last bullet point for this portion of the conversation is going to be something that Suzanne, you spoke about at the beginning of the podcast here, which would be being a flexible leader. And that is being able to take the lead in the conversation, making sure, of course, we're valuing our time. We don't have all day, as much as we'd love to give it to them, to spend answering every single question, going through the entirety of every piece of the playbook that we have. We have to make sure we're leading them to the place that we want to be, not only assumptively, if we know we want this listing and they fit into our ideal client profile, if you will. This is a great match for me. How do I lead them to the point of the presentation, to the close, etc.? And so I always want to have a quick discussion on different ways that we can lead a conversation, but also be listening along the way as well, because of course that goes into it. So any types of questions that you've used, or any types of approaches that you've used in the past, to make sure that you can go in and essentially set the stage from the beginning and make sure that you're in the driver's seat of the conversation, which at times is exactly what the homeowner is looking for. Because again, everyone's on Redfin, everyone's on Zillow, everyone's a real estate expert with all 15 minutes of experience that they have. But it does give you that warm and fuzzy when the person that's you're making the biggest financial investment of your entire life potentially is telling you, this is based on my 18 to 25 years of experience. This is the way to actually do it the right way. So Suzanne, I'll start out with you on this one. What would be the approach, or what are some different questions or topics you bring up?
Well, I think, again, going back to flexibility, you want to, it's really a balancing act, because you want to be able to have a conversation. You want to, again, ask good questions. But you also I don't like to get on to a level where we get really into personal things, because sometimes that's easy. If somebody during a potential client comes and they're upset, or maybe somebody has passed away, and you want to have compassion for that, but you also want to remain as the expert. It give you the example. It's like, if you had a shoulder problem and you went to the orthopedic doctor, and you're there and you're looking for help, and then the orthopedic doctor comes in and says, oh, my shoulder hurts really bad too. Geez, I'm not sure what to do about it. Can you believe this? You're just like, what? You're the expert here. I don't want to hear about your shoulder. So again, it's really get on point. It's to talk about what is important to them. What are they looking for? What is going to make sense? What is their past experiences too? Oftentimes, maybe they've had past experiences that weren't very good. Maybe they sold another property where, they didn't like the agent, or they felt, they didn't get the best value for it. So it's leading them, but still in a very compassionate, controlling way, so they feel that they're being listened to, but guided by an expert. So again, it's a balancing act, but anything that you do is in getting down to where you are not seen as the expert anymore, I think is going to send you walking out the door.
And I'll go to we have a local team of coaches over here, and one of them
Mhm.
specializes in what we call NLP, not what we call, but what is referred to as NLP, neuro linguistic programming, which is probably one of the craziest focuses in science. I'm not sure if it's fully scientifically proved, but it's one of the most interesting things. If you've never
Yes.
heard of it, I'd strongly suggest looking it up.
Yes.
But from 10,000 feet, really one of the big takeaways is it's a way to control the conversation and lead someone to where you want to go. If you're looking to get into that, if you want to make sure you're doing what's necessary there, 10,000 feet from what you're saying there, Suzanne, is really our golden rule here is if you're the one asking the questions, you're the one in the driver's seat
Mhm.
because you're essentially steering that conversation. And I'm not going to say it's even the illusion of that they're in control. It's you're guiding them while giving
Correct.
them the opportunity to participate, to be an active member, to be able to actually be part of the quote unquote present conversation,
Sure.
not just an attendee of a presentation.
Sure. And then also repeating back to them what they've said, so I understand this is what's important to you. And then, coming in with, okay, this is the value I bring. This is going to help relieve. People want peace of mind. They want an expert to take over, to guide them, to feel like they're being heard, listened to, and that their goal is being set together with somebody. They want somebody, again, offer expertise to them, but they want to be listened to. And so a lot of that is repeating back to them what they've said. I understand, you don't have any resources. Some of my clients sell in an as-is condition, but we can't, set a price that's super high for a completely remodeled home. So, there's a lot of, you have to understand somebody's situation, where they're coming from, what they're, if they have resources or not, but again, guiding them so that it's a lot of yeses along the way, so that you get down to a close and it's very assumptive that, we're going to work together.
I love it there. And Suzanne, what I'd love to reference here is we always do the example because what we were talking about is like active listening, repeating back, make sure they feel like they're heard. That is for anyone listening here, repeating back what someone is saying in a way that it lets them know they're being heard by you. And sometimes we call it parroting, even paraphrasing it back. It doesn't have to be an exact reference back, but it is the complete opposite. If you're thinking about, well, okay, well, how do I frame this? It's the complete opposite. If you have your cell phone in your hand in front of your face and someone's talking to you, and then they're like, oh yeah, I totally got that. They're not listening. By parroting back, by paraphrasing back, you are doing the literally complete opposite of that. And it gives them just as much of a positive feeling when you're doing that as a negative feeling would come if you have your phone in front of your face the entire time of having a conversation.
Mhm.
So for anyone out there, if it's something that when you first start doing it, actually, it's something that I practiced for a long, long time. And people used to say, dude, why do you just repeat back everything that I say to you? I'm like, because I want to make sure I'm understanding like along the way. And understanding is a huge part of it. And it's something you referenced in there, Suzanne, is if you repeat it back and it's wrong, you identify that right there on the spot because they will correct you. And it's a great way to make sure that there's a full understanding on both sides and that you're both on the same page going into the presentation and, to your point, the close, to make sure that they're properly ready and educated to do so. Jennifer, at the beginning of the conversation here, you were talking about the first 5 minutes, building rapport, so on and so forth. Would you be able to talk through just quickly, what is the first 5 minutes of the appointment from knocking on the door? What's your approach? Do you show up right on time, 5 minutes before? How do you make sure you go into this setup the right way?
If any of my friends are listening, they're going to know I show up right on time. But it's fine. A lot of times you come in a little too early, they're not ready. So I might drive up and be in the driveway or in the street, getting my stuff together, give them a few minutes to see me maybe, and then come in. But as far as the walking in, my kind of routine, especially if I've never seen the house or I don't know the people, right? So assuming that is to, greet and talk in the foyer, usually say hello. And then we, kind of move over to probably a dining area or living room. And then I say, hey, you know what? Before we sit down and chat more about everything, why don't you give me a quick tour of your home? I'd love to see, the house, let's point, and then when I'm in the room, sometimes I'll say maybe, oh, have you redone the bathrooms? When did you do this? So it's kind of like a natural conversation of getting a little bit more information from them about updates, how long they've lived there, whose room is this? How many kids they have? I can obviously see by the house. So conversations just naturally come with that tour. And also they're very excited to show you because everybody loves to show off their house. And, if they're selling it, they're usually proud of it. And that's why they're going to want about $100,000 more than the market will bear. So I would like to know why this bathroom is so special to you, or, what did you do that's, $100,000 shower? just, I would love to see that 5 heads and all the sprays. So, and then, go outside for a second, depending on weather, take a peek, and then sit down. Just say, oh, awesome. Well, let's go, why don't we go back and let's regroup and sit down here and we'll talk a little bit more about what it is, and then just go into the presentation easily where you're not sitting down and like pulling out your binders and throwing flyers everywhere. And, I think I usually don't even pull anything out until the very end. I actually forget I have it all. A lot of times, just because I feel sometimes it's not appropriate timing to pull out the sheets and the value adds and all the other stuff can come as needed. But yeah, that's my rapport piece. That's pretty much how it goes down. And then, like Suzanne said, then you go in for the close. So when can I put this box on the door?
I think it's safe to say it's always easier having that full-blown conversation with someone who's excited, someone who's happy, someone who actually just walked you through their home, explaining how great it is, being able to then collect that information. And one of our previous podcasts was on pain, motivation, and just getting to know the person through rapport building. They're giving you every piece of information you would ever need to go into that close. And those discovery questions, as we call them, or just the questions as a whole, gives you that ammunition to be able to then go in, and if they start having second thoughts, or if they have to think about it, so on and so forth, you can draw them back to what they were telling you.
Yeah. Oh, remember you said you're short a bathroom, you're short a bedroom, you're pregnant, you're having twins. Like, don't forget, we have to get you another house. Like, you can't sit in this thing. Or the other thing too is it might be a sad thing or a divorce or a death. So you do, your rapport all kind of based on what the situation is for that seller. And I think either way, showing off the house is always an easy opener. And it's always a memory for you as well. When you get back and start asking more questions to them, you can go, oh yeah, remember that bedroom? What was the, whatever. So it's all kind of goes with the whole picture. And I think people then identify you as that expert, as like, oh wow, well she got the whole, all behind the curtain scene.
And it gives them a sense of being thorough, right? You're going through from top to bottom, all of the different features, all of the different areas. And that feeling right there, who wants to work with someone who's not thorough down the road? So it's setting the precedent from the get-go.
Right down at the table and it's like, so what do you want to sell your house for?
Yeah, maybe if I was getting divorced, that'd be something I'd look for. But no, selling a house, definitely want someone who's going to take the time to get to know me and get to know my house as a whole, because it has, even most homes have more sentimental value than actual home value. Granted, it depends on the market, but along the way, and they want to make sure that if they're emotionally attached to it, that you get to know it on a personal level, even if it's an inanimate house, that they want you to know their house and know the nuances with it. And it'll give them that warm and fuzzy feeling, especially when you do get down to the nuts and bolts at the table of actually signing on the dotted line. And Jennifer, I'll actually go through, because you referenced it here. The last portion of the podcast today was just what materials do we bring to the house with us? What's in our tool belt? What are we showing to these home sellers on the first meeting? And this can be buyers. I'm going to say is probably a little bit of a different checklist. So we're going to say sellers just for today. So what do we bring with us for net seller sheet? Do we bring a CMA? Do we bring a computer? Do we bring a tablet? Do we bring checklists? I'd always love to know what's in your tool belt and what are you ready to whip out and show that homeowner when the time comes.
I always have my iPad with me. I will research and do an analysis on the property, obviously prior to the appointment, always, no matter what. Not seeing it. If I haven't seen it, then obviously it's very generic, and I keep it that way on purpose because I'm not nailing down a price, especially if I'm interviewing if they're interviewing multiple agents and I don't know where I stand. My thing, it's not like I'm trying to be secretive, but I'm not going to give away everything at the first initial conversation. So, here's my ballpark of my idea, but my CMA, and I usually draw on it and highlight it on the iPad and show it to them. And then I'll have a backup so I can get into my my MLS, and pull up the actual property and maybe show them why this one's better than theirs or why this one sold for X dollars. So they can physically see with their own eyeballs why that house that they heard sold for so much more over ask or whatever, and why, or maybe it really didn't and it just appeared that way. obviously I don't leave any of that behind necessarily. That's just my person. That's why I put it on the iPad and not paper, so it doesn't stay. And but I do actually have one right here. It's Nest is an amazing company for marketing. They have like the cream of the crop marketing people. So we have a Nest Realty, like Wilmington. This is based for Wilmington only, and it's a whole listing presentation book. And I'll just kind of touch on some parts of it because it's really pretty. And I'll leave this behind with a folder and some things with our company, and more about leaving behind what they just interviewed, and so they can go back and review who I was, what company I'm with. They want to look up more information and things like that. So as far as seller net sheets, I don't really get into much of those personally until I know where they are. So I don't know what their motivation is. Is it value, or is it just sell it fast, don't care? So those all kind of come along with the next step. But initially just me and maybe my listing book and my iPad.
Minimalist approach. And that's actually perfect, because I think for a lot of people, the last thing you need, especially if you're interviewing multiple agents, you got a table full of paperwork. None of it really makes a ton of sense because you just talked to 6 different people who gave you 5.5 different answers of what's been going on. And it's just having that nice shiny book. And as you said, it looks really nice, even for what you're showing us on camera. That alone, just having the quality of the book there is going to speak to the quality of you as an agent along the way. And it's very well put together. It doesn't look like it was thrown together at the last minute. You've got the technology to show that you can pull the data and it's available to them. You got the highlighter, so you can really make it engaging. I think that's exactly what, especially well, I'd actually love to hear from Suzanne now. What's it like? Is the marketing the same in the East Coast as is the West Coast? And market by market, it always does change. So Suzanne, I know you have a strong history in marketing.
Yes.
What does your tool belt look like?
I really feel that when I go into something, I know that somebody is probably, if talked to friends, family, everyone's a market expert, right? People at work, everyone, is going to tell you what to do, what you should list the price for, and everything. So part of my presentation, I don't bring a net sheet or any of that. I don't get into all the numbers and all that, but I do bring some information about the market and the current market, because, again, just take, for example, today, here in the West Coast, we've been in a shifting market, probably just like the entire nation. So a lot of people, though, are back into about 6, 7, 8 months ago, where, here, especially multiple offers, crazy, all over asking. And so market information is really important. I also bring, of course, a CMA. Again, and just like Jennifer, I highlight things and go over it in detail. But I also, what I do is also get down to what are they, how do we compare your property to these properties? That's really important, because sometimes we've got to get into a realistic, approach. I do bring something about myself. I do have a presentation book, of course, about myself. But I really, I try to get a lot of the objectives handled ahead of time, which is about, what is the market? What is the expectations? What's happening? Can we only go back a couple of months right now, or even a month in this market? And having people, understand that. So, again, just depends. Some of my clients I like to have a visual thing for them so that we can leave them with something. And that's about it.
And I think that's, especially in this day and age, what my main takeaway from what both of you are bringing to the table is just market analysis, market knowledge, being an expert in the area, being able to show that to them, and then being able to tailor the presentation in the future to what their goals, what they want to achieve with the property. Are they looking to sell it fast? Are they looking to maximize the value? Are they looking to upgrade, downsize, so on and so forth? What we've always preached here, and this is going to be an over exaggeration, but showing up to the house with a sign under your arm is not the approach that a lot of people are looking for, if anyone is looking for. And sometimes
do that.
Yeah, I was going to say it was
pull it right out the trunk.
Yeah, briefcase and a sign and knock on the front door. And in this day and age, a lot of people, well, not being too assumptive, because I know that's something people don't want to feel like they're being sold and they want to feel as though they're being educated. That's something that's overarchingly what is looked for. But being able to not go in with a net sheet and a whole stack of paperwork with a listing contract on top saying we're ready to go. That's the level of presentation, I guess we can go back to saying, yep, I've got it all right here. Everything you're going to need to see. I already know what it is, because so on and so forth. It takes away from the whole ambience of the situation. I think both of your approaches here, Suzanne, you've got your personal information, because again, people list with people, not brokerages, not logos, so on and so forth. You can leave that with them. Jennifer, you've got your amazing book there from the brokerage showing all of the amazing things that you guys offer, and of course, what they can look forward to as well. Big takeaway for anyone listening here: if you do not have a leave behind, that is probably more important, if not just as important as the actual presentation, because I'm not going to say rarely, but there are going to be times where they have to think about it. And you having something that's in their hand when they leave and knowing how to reach you, of course, you should be following up with them anyway, but them being able to reach you when they come to that decision, they want to have that readily on hand, not just a tiny business card, a full-blown book like that, very hard to miss. They leave it on their coffee table. Not only do people notice and talk about it, but it's got all of your information in it, and it paints a very, very good picture of the not only experience working with you, but everything going into it. So very cool. I love the minimal approach, if you will, because at this day and age, I think sometimes we call it paralysis by analysis. You give them too much, they end up doing nothing at all. Just showing them that you are prepared to take the next steps helps them feel more comfortable actually taking the steps in the first place.
Exactly. But never, I feel, go to the presentation without having listing documents.
That is 100%.
Just don't pull them out.
And you know what? There has been a time where our local brokerage here, they went to the appointment. I got a phone call at 6:45 on a Friday. Man, where are you? I need you to drive to Hamlin. I completely forgot my briefcase. I didn't have a listing contract. And of course, I'm at the office printing it out and driving 25 minutes to go drop it off. Always make sure you have it. Always go in with the assumption that you will be getting business.
Yes.
Even if you choose to or choose not to, you should always be prepared, as the Boy Scouts say. So fantastic last piece of advice on that, Suzanne. Never leave the house without one. Doesn't matter where you're going. Keep one in your glove, keep one in your car, keep one in your purse, whatever you have available to you.
No matter if you use
that loop, just have your loop ready.
Always have the loop ready. Perfect.
Exactly.
So last slide of the day. This is something that we've broken down over here through our local brokerage. It's just 8 simple steps. You greet the person, you build that rapport, you take control of the conversation through asking questions, you do the full walkthrough, you show them you're that thorough agent who's going to take the time to get to know them, get to know their home, get to know themselves. Bringing the CMA, that market analysis, making sure that you're the educated, you're the expert that's going to tell them that, yeah, I know what your estimate said, but here's some comparables in the area. Here's how we're going to compare your house to theirs, and here's what we're going to look for. The contract, we don't ever leave the house without it, and making sure that we have it available to us. It's easy to read, easy to explain, easy for them to engage with. And then the close, making sure that you're able to go into that conversation with the ammunition you need, the callbacks to you're down a bathroom, you're down a bedroom, you have twins on the way, you have whatever the situation may be. When they're like, I might have to think about it, making sure that you're able to go in for that close and actually get that contract signed, because once that's done, that's when the fun begins. And then of course, the button up, leaving them with a good taste in their mouth, leaving that book behind, or just letting them know exactly what next steps are going to be. I was just curious here, either Jennifer or Suzanne, any steps you feel are missing here, or any steps you would rearrange based on your processes that you feel as though right here we can make any modifications to?
Well, for me, when I go into the appointment, I kind of gauge the seller, and if they're a real talker, oftentimes I don't dive into the walkthrough right away, because I'm going to need to take a little control. And sometimes during the walkthrough, they'll be talking, and a lot of it is nervous chatter too. They'll be talking too much about the physical features of the home. I like to get into a little bit of more of a controlling atmosphere by talking with them first. And I'm sure, Jennifer, we all gauge that. But, I usually will do the walkthrough after we've kind of spoken a little bit, and they feel more comfortable with me. I've, listened to them, and we've gotten to a point right before the CMA. Then I say, let's just take a quick look around. And such. So that's the only thing I kind of do. Sometimes it just kind of have to gauge the seller in their demeanor, or the dominant person. You can tell right away. Well, how are they going to try to control things, or, so that's the only thing I suggest.
Great feedback. And I would say a big takeaway I got from that as well is once you set up your list of steps, and I think it's a good practice to have these in front of you just so that you can really keep them top of mind, don't skip a step. Don't go through the walkthrough if you don't feel as though you're in control of the conversation. Don't do too much marketing before you've done the CMA and built the value in your expertise in the system, because if you don't have the feeling of being the expert and you're trying to show them what your marketing consists of, it's taking away from one of the biggest bullets in your gun. It's saying, I'm the expert and here's why I'm the expert. And you're solidifying it with all the other points. So I'd say when you have your process in place, it's so important to follow it and not jump around too much, and or not skip a step even though you might feel as though you can. It just, at the end of the day, opens up a gap or an area where maybe you have to address in the future, and or it just doesn't flow as smoothly. Jennifer, anything on this list here that you would say you change, or any different steps that you would add in along the way based on your experience?
Honestly, I think it's pretty straightforward right there. I mean, that's like you said, with Suzanne saying, obviously you want to read your client before you either you sit down first and have a conversation and build that rapport. But I think to take control is what you do when you come into the house after you've greeted. You kind of almost decide at that point, are we going to do a walkthrough now, or are we going to sit down first and go over some more details and have more of a in-depth chat and then do a walk? So the take control is I mean, I wish you could say it was number one, but obviously
it is. It's really key. It is.
It's like you're taking control before you greet. Let's just be real here. The second you walked in the door, like literally walking up the sidewalk, you're taking control of how that whole meeting's going to go down when you say hello. And when you get off track, I would say as a tip, don't freak out. Don't get all nervous. Oh my gosh, I'm not in 1 through 8 order. You will land back. Just don't, let it happen naturally. I've been on so many listing appointments that sometimes I get in the car, I was like, what just happened? Like, I'm just like, so, discombobulated. I'm out of my normal thing. And I felt like, oh my God, what did I say? Why did I say that? Or why didn't I say that? And it just, and you feel it, but you're not a robot.
The overly chatty client that just goes
on. They get you every time.
Right?
They get you every time, or they throw you a curveball and they're just like, well, I'm interviewing, or they tell you who you're interviewing. And I think for me, that throws me a curveball. Like, it throws me off. I'm like, oh gosh, you're interviewing so-and-so. No, this is why, and then it's like, not competitive at all.
No, of course not.
But
absolutely. Very cool. And I would say the first time you're taking control is when you show up on time and knock on the door. That immediately puts you in the driver's seat. They agreed to a time to meet with you. When you're there on time, not too early, definitely not late, then that's immediately putting you in the right position there. And I think one of the big takeaways I got from you there, Jennifer, obviously, as someone who's a little bit more on the back end of things over here on the marketing and everything, processes everything. If we skip a step anywhere, for us, that's a big deal. For you guys, I'm looking at it more now as in, I was never personally a performer for music, but at the end of the day, if you're playing the song the right way and you miss a note, you miss one slight little thing,
no one knows but you.
And not letting that ruin your composure, to your point, keeping your foot on the gas, making sure that they know that you're still in control of the conversation. And if you go in with that confidence, I mean, at the end of the day, that's what people look for more than anything.
Right.
So I always like to wrap it up here with just a final thought. If we were going to bundle this all together in a sentence or two, I'd love to just hear what is a big takeaway you'd suggest to anybody who's going to be doing a presentation following this one today. What is just a quick thought that you can leave them with, summarizing everything that we covered here?
You want to go first, Suzanne?
I'll let you.
Okay. Well, I think using literally today's market, I think, it's going back to basics. So if you were what they're calling a COVID agent and you've never really had to go on an appointment, you've never had to present, you literally did show up with the sign in the car. Like you have no idea of how to prepare a true CMA. It needs to get done. It has to be done. You've got to analyze the market today. You can't just fly by the seat of your pants.
Correct.
And they are interviewing multiple agents. Before it was, I think they interviewed them online and they looked at people and then they just literally called you and you were just the person a lot of times. And I think it's super important to come very prepared, treat it again like an interview because you are being interviewed, but you're also interviewing them. So you want to prepare your questions as well. So you want to come in ready to fire. And I think being, just don't take it personally if you're not the one, so learn to move on, because I think a lot of agents in the last few years, couple of years, 3 years, whatever, have just been like, it's just been so easy, so before we're going back to the basics, which Suzanne and I both been in the business for long enough to go through those roller coaster rides where you have to compete with your colleagues. And you need to earn the business. It's no longer late. I mean, we always love the little lay down one, right? But it's a different market today.
So main takeaway, if you're a COVID agent, don't even try to compete with Jennifer. You're not going to win. Okay.
Exactly.
I don't know. They're getting honed in on those skills though. They're practicing, I think.
I know.
Hey, trial by fire. I was going to say they will catch up, but they'll never have the same level of experience.
Yeah.
And any
Suzanne,
market
last
shifts,
thought?
any market shifts, we both know that a lot of people just bail. They get out of the industry because they can't be successful in a very challenging market. They don't know how to alter their skill set and such, and bring themselves up to the point of really being on the top of their game in any market. Because markets, it's real estate, right? Real estate is shifting. Real estate is, if it were the same, it would probably be boring.
Yeah, it never is flat, ever.
Exactly.
There's a graph chart for a reason. If it wasn't, it would just be.
Exactly. Well, I start, usually on my phone call with them, I kind of start a little mini presentation so that I can follow up and reiterate when we start again. You're speaking face to face. So I kind of let them know what's going to be the purpose of our meeting and what it's somewhat going to detail. And so I like to try to get them excited, for because nothing's worse than having them call you or text you in the morning. Sorry, I'm canceling. So it's really providing value ahead of time, so to make them feel that they're going to get something that they really want out of this. They don't want to miss this one. They don't want to.
That's a good. I like that.
Yeah.
Get them excited. Like you don't want to miss that. Doctor's appointment you waited for 4 months to get in.
I know, exactly.
Can't reschedule me.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's kind of like what you want to present it that way. Like I'm going to put a lot of work into our presentation, and I look. You
want to get them excited and knowing that, hey, I'm not going to be, if you're looking for a typical presentation, I'm not it. I'm going to give you value. I'm going to give you a market analysis, but an overall analysis of what it's like to sell in this market and how you can be successful in this market. And so you want them to have something to look forward to. And then, I circle back to it on the presentation, as we discussed when we first spoke, I talked about this and this and this, let's, dive into this a little bit more. So that's kind of my contribution there. Get them excited on the call, get them not to cancel. And so I have a pretty good rate of, the people that actually, confirm the appointment and we're there.
Awesome. And I would say, yes, building value in advance. There's nothing better than getting them excited. And actually that will do wonders for your show up rate. And I think a big part of that is giving them what they need, giving them enough to be excited about. But then going back to what Jennifer said a while ago, even at the listing presentation, don't give them everything. Keep them wondering just a little bit until they have that contract signed.
Yep.
You're the expert. Don't give them
Yep.
too much, but make
Yep.
sure that they know missing this would be a huge mistake on their part. And if they're excited, they will be there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. Well, wrapping things up for today. If you're interested in learning more about anything that we offer here at Ren 360, you can go to renfreetrial.com. You can book a strategy session. We can do some consulting for you. We can show you what we offer along the way. If you want to take advantage of any of the different experience that we have, or be in a community of people just like Suzanne, just like Jennifer, we can help facilitate that for you. So make sure you take advantage. There will be a link in the description as well. And if you have any referrals in the West Coast or East Coast, we do have agents just about everywhere. Jennifer's contact information, Suzanne's contact information will be in the description here. Make sure you give them a follow on the major social medias. I always say stand on the shoulders of giants, and these two giants right here, I promise you, you will learn a thing or two, not only from today, but also by seeing what they do on a day-to-day basis. And with that,
Awesome.
Jennifer, Suzanne, thank you so much for being on here. It was an amazing podcast today, and we hope to have you both on here again in the future.